is that going back a couple of years, the latest data, $500 million worth of P and only $50 million of asset forfeitures by police. Now that is like a 10% tax, 50 million plays 5 million.
Yes, but back then you weren't talking about taxing the gangs, you were talking about asset forfeiture, that we should increase that. Now you want to tax them.
I think you're confused about the fact I used tax as a metaphor back then.
A metaphor,
yeah.
Okay.
So I'll try and make it simple for you.
It's okay.
Here's the thing. I was talking to someone yesterday who operates an emergency housing motel, a small one. 3 of the rooms were filled with grandparents, specifically grandmothers, who are looking after their grandchildren. Why? Because their parents are whacked on P. This drug and these gangs are destroying lives in New Zealand.
They are.
No solution that does not go to the heart of the problem is going to solve it.
Well,
and
I want to talk about your solution.
The heart of the problem is that it is profitable to sell illegal drugs. So long as that is true, it's going to keep happening.
Well, let's talk about your solution,
because
you are right. So you want to get stuck in on tax. You want to set the IRD on to investigate these high-rolling gangsters. That's the principle.
That's right. Look, the Inland Revenue Department are the scariest department. They certainly have some power.
Are they?
Well, you could tell most people.
Corrections, police. There's plenty of scary departments, I think, to the gangsters.
Well, it's not a competition, but they do have very extensive powers that other departments don't to investigate taxation, and they do have an information sharing arrangement with police and other agencies on gangs. We don't believe they're using it. If you Google gangs and IRD, the first result you get is an investigation into a sheep shearing gang that didn't pay their tax.
Okay.
I think we've got to get the focus onto gangs dealing illegal drugs, ruining lives, and the IRD has powers that we think should be redirected onto them.
What are those powers?
Right now, the IRD, thanks to David Parker at the end of 2020, gave the IRD the power to request information about all sources of wealth that a person has. David Parker, as is his wont, has set those powers on what he believes are New Zealand's wealthiest people. Interestingly, they actually went through the NBR rich list, and we got them to admit this.
Let's talk about the gangs. Stick to the gangs, not the high rollers, David. What do you want the IRD to do?
This is what they did.
No, I want to talk about what you want the IRD to do. That's what we're here to talk about today.
What we want them to do is exactly what they're doing right now to people on the rich list. The IRD went through the rich list. We got them to admit this, and said, we're going to send these people a questionnaire and a survey. It's a criminal offence not to fill it out. Yeah. Tell us where you got all your money from so we can design tax law to take it off you.
So you want to send a questionnaire and a survey to gang members in the same manner?
We should use exactly the powers that are being used. A questionnaire. Exactly the powers that are being used to interrogate New Zealand's most successful business people, to the people who do have ill-gotten gains, who are ruining people's lives, and that is New Zealand's gangs.
Okay.
We should force them to
but we're talking about a questionnaire and a letter from the IRD here, your own policy, because the truth is that you don't actually know how to tax the gangs, so you're going to get the IRD to do a research project, aren't you?
Well, and if you'd let me explain the purpose of this policy, that is because when I started saying that this policy is being used on New Zealand's most successful business people,
it's not a policy, David. It's a research project. The IRD is doing research on the high rollers. You are saying you want to do research on the gangs. We're
saying that we want to take this project, which is being directed at legal, successful business people, and put it onto. It is a policy, actually.
Well, no, it's a research project.
So you're saying that what New Zealand is doing, or what the New Zealand government is doing, to New Zealand's most successful business people,
it's a research project.
Well, I can tell you, it's putting them through enormous burden to be able to fill out huge amounts of information. And I just think if we're going to start getting serious about drugs and about gangs, then actually we should be directing that power of the IRD to request that information that is not available for any other purpose. We should be using that power on the people that are truly gaining wealth unfairly and illegally, and we should use it on them.
David, this is a gang policy. You have accused the government for months now of being soft on gangs, and your big new gang policy is to request information using a questionnaire from the IRD.
Our big new gang policy.
That is not being tough on crime.
Well, let me put it this way. You are never going to stop the scourge of drugs and the damage that it does while it remains profitable.
Well, I don't think you're going to stop it with a questionnaire and a research project by the IRD.
Well, I think actually if you don't make it unprofitable, you won't stop it. Well, so let me ask you this question.
Well, I asked the question to you, David. Your policy says the information collected by Inland Revenue can't be used to lock up gang members directly, but the information can be used to improve future policies on taxing gangs. So this will not take one gang member off the street, and it's actually not a policy, it's a sort of direction of a policy.
No, it's not that at all. It is going to the gang members, it is identifying them, it is finding out how much money they've got, where they got from, and it also says...
They're going to tell you that?
And if you... Yes, they will.
When they reply to the letter and the questionnaire?
Yep, because if they don't, they get fined, and if they don't pay their fines, eventually they go to jail.
Okay.
So here's the next issue.
What are you promising voters, David? What is your line in the sand here, that you'll crush these gangs using this questionnaire and a research project from the IRD?
What we're saying is we're going to make sure that they pay their share of tax. Right now, they are bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars of drugs that are ruining people's lives, and they're getting off scot-free. Now, I'd put it to you that you're not going to solve that problem until you get to the heart of where they're getting the money, and the IRD has the power to find that out that nobody else does.
Okay.
And I think if we knew that, and if we started to target the fact that bringing in illegal drugs and ruining people's lives is profitable, then we could actually solve the problem.
Okay.
Now, you can belittle that.
I'm not belittling it, I am challenging it, because this doesn't appear to me to be a policy, it appears to be a press release. Don't voters deserve better than this on this issue, David? Because this is a serious public safety and law and order issue. Don't they deserve better than a sort of headline policy, which is about a questionnaire and a future research project by the IRD? Especially when you're calling the government soft on crime.
It's about using the powers of the IRD, which are the greatest powers that any government agency has, to get to the core driver of gangs and drugs, which is that it is profitable. Until we attack that basic issue, we're not going to solve this problem.
Well,
now, you can call it... No, sorry, excuse me. You can call it as many names as you like. You can belittle it. You can say that it's a research project. What we're doing is we are analysing why there's a problem, because it's profitable. We're getting stuck into that problem by getting the information that allows us to properly crack down on gangs. If you don't do that, you don't have a solution. So we have got to the heart of the issue and proposed a solution.
Okay.
And the best you can do is ridicule it.
Is it going to stop 60 gang members on bikes beating up and harassing a man, giving him a serious head injury on the Waikato Expressway? Because that is what voters are worried about, aren't they?
It absolutely will, because you've got to ask yourself, why were there 60 and why did they have flash Harley-Davidsons? Because they're doing something that's profitable, and you don't know, and the current government doesn't know, how they got that money, where they got it from, and how to stop it. We do. We are actually solving problems here.
Well, you don't know. You're asking the IRD to find out, David. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Nation this morning.
Of course, politicians use government departments to solve problems. Thank you.
Stay with us. We're back after